Damascus, capital city of Syria, is home to nearly 3 million people. An early Christian centre conquered by the Arabs more than 1,000 years ago, it's the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. But the pace of life is quickening, and for the young there's a new sense of identity. Since the demise of the Soviet Union, Syria has been looking westwards for new links. The 6,000 Soviet military advisors have gone home to Russia, and there's no favoured trade status between the two countries anymore. Today, Syria's a 400,000 barrel a day oil producer searching for new economic partners. Not that it's likely to change the attitude to life in this coffee shop in the heart of Damascus. After years of relative isolation, the country is opening up to Western influence. Now there are between 300 and 400 foreign companies established in Syria. They've taken advantage of a recent law which grants financial advantages to interested outsiders. The fledgling tourist industry is also expanding, though the country's image abroad still needs to improve.
Despite the relations that France had with Syria for quite a long time, Syria even now is considered as a country from where many acts of terrorism started.
Its former colonial power was not the only state to mistrust the policies of President Assad, one of Israel's fiercest opponents in the Middle East. But as time's turning in favour of peace in the region, Syrian ministers predict that tourism will become a major growth industry.
Syria has great tourist possibilities, which might help put Syria high on the international tourist map, provided our country makes good use of these possibilities, provided it exploits them, and provided it builds up the necessary infrastructure and markets itself well.
90% of people in this rugged country are followers of Islam, yet a number of early Christian sites remain active. One of them is in the village of Malula, set in the foothills of the anti-Lebanon mountain range. The service at the convent of St. Takla is still conducted in the Aramaic language spoken in the early Christian era. Though the walls are new, the foundations are said to be the oldest in the world. Above the convent, a tree grows out of the rock near the saint's tomb. So unexpected here that some call it a miracle, just like this pool of water dripping out of the dry rock. Legend has it that St. Takla became trapped here as she ran away from her pagan father. She prayed, and the mountain opened. A hotel welcomes the visitors, whether pilgrims or tourists. Some new developments are joint ventures between the state and the private sector, like this 3,000-room hotel at the Mediterranean beach resort of Latakia. It's only 5 years old and customers are still mostly Syrian, but the number of foreign tourists is growing year by year. Cash is still the main form of payment. Credit cards are slowly but surely finding their way into being accepted, but mainly in the larger establishments. The need for foreign currency has encouraged a two-tiered system. Foreign tourists can be charged up to 25 times as much as Syrians for the same services. However, income from tourism is not as substantial as it could be. With its location and climate, Syria could become as popular as neighbouring Lebanon was in its pre-Civil War years. There's no shortage of restaurants and nightclubs on the coastline. 100 kilometres south of Latakia, the resort of Tartus. In progress, an ambitious building programme on the coast nearby. In 4 years' time, the area will be unrecognisable. A whole complex providing accommodation for 2,000 holidaymakers is about to spring up here, and the preparation alone is worth $12 million. When building's in full swing in a few months' time, hundreds of people will be working on the project, which is also being funded by public and private monies from Syria and the United Arab Emirates. There have been surprises. Workmen recently uncovered the remains of a long-gone civilization, so plans were revised to make the find a feature of the holiday complex. 5 kilometers along the beach, the port city of Tartus itself is being renovated by the authorities. During the restoration work, families who made their homes within the old quarter have been rehoused elsewhere. There are also plans for a maritime museum. This is Palmyra, once an oasis in the Syrian desert and a major stage post for camel-mounted Bedouins travelling from the Gulf to the Mediterranean. Foreign travellers now come to the 50 hectares of ruins to gaze at one of the world's best preserved archaeological sites and to dream of its former splendour. As Rome pushed eastwards the frontiers of its empire in the 1st and 2nd centuries, the town became a mighty buffer zone between the Romans and the Persians, and its importance grew accordingly. But it declined after the year 250. Queen Zenobia had taken over following the suspicious death of her husband and declared independence from Rome. She was captured and died there. Long after the event, the memory lingers on for the visitors who can savour the view from the dining area of a hotel built in 1924 and named after Queen Zenobia. But no other construction will be allowed quite so close to the site in future, as the government's undoubtedly concerned to preserve its priceless heritage. However, there's a shortage of accommodation for the hordes of tourists who flock to Palmyra in the high season, which stretches from May to October. There are plans for further development, but they're unlikely to be translated into buildings before 1994, by which time shortages might be critical.
Everybody, whether it be somebody in a shop or somebody you meet on the street who gives you directions, they're always incredibly hospitable, always wanting to welcome you.
These are not rare comments. More and more foreigners are enjoying Syrian hospitality. Of course, this is a country made poor by decades of regional conflict. But if the Middle East peace process becomes a reality, tourism could become a trump card for Syria.